We're back then today with another endgame build guide for Last Epoch, and for this one we'll be showing off one of my personal favourite minion setups. This is the Fire Necromancer build. So with this we'll have as many as 18 different minions out. They'll be spewing fire all over the screen, doing an absolute heap of damage, and they can actually take a decent amount of damage with the setup we're running as well. Now the focus for our minions, it will be on spell damage and fire damage specifically, and also we'll aim to get a really high crit rate with our minions as well. Now before we do go in and we do start breaking it all down here, there is a level 1 to 80 leveling guide for this particular setup on the channel, so feel free to check that out if you're just starting off leveling a Necromancer. Otherwise, if you're all ready to go, let's jump in and we'll start off with an overview first. The build then, as mentioned, is a fire, spell and crit based minion build. This is another lazy build to play with you leaving your undead army to do the majority of the work for you, and you having to occasionally cast volatile zombie to finish off an elite or a boss, and you also will be casting Dreadshade on one of your range minions every 40 seconds. So Dreadshade is a buff we put on one of our minions that means that they take a ton more damage, but all of your minions will deal a ton more damage as a result of this. And because we use a pyre golem, which is doing tanking for us, and we have a ton of minions, the downsides of Dreadshade on a single range minion when it's lowering their defence, it's hardly noticeable at all. Gear wise here we use 3 uniques, and they are Reach of the Grave, equipable at level 5 but it's still amazing. Endgame, we have Ribbons of Blood, which gives our minions a ton of survivability, and Logi's Hunger, which is perfect for a fire based minion build. So the gear's really not too bad at all, the requirements here. Effects wise on our gear, we won't be doing any direct damage at all, so it's all about stacking minion damage and also intelligence, which will give your minions both defence and offence. That is a quick overview anyway, so let's go in now and let's break down the gear that we will be using. For this section here then we will use the awesome Last Epoch Tools build planner. Now I'll put a link to this particular setup I'm showing, which is the perfect gear you're aiming for, and I'll also put a link to my live Necromancer build as well. That's the one that you've seen the gameplay from in this video. But starting off on the helmet, the implicit on this base is great. It's minion spell damage, which is perfect for us. In regards to the modifiers, I will show one exalted modifier for each of the gear pieces that aren't uniques. So what you would want your exalted one, it would be your critical strike chance for skeletons and mages. That goes up to a flat 10%, which is huge. We've then got increased minion fire damage, we have flat health, and we have endurance as well. For the amulet slot, I would use Logi's Hunger. So this particular one, what's really nice about it is the minion critical strike chance, 3% it gives you, but the main thing really is the +2 to the level of minion fire skills. That applies to our archers, our mages and our golem as well. So 6 skills overall it has given us between those 3 different skills. Your legendary potential effects, I will show one of these on unique items for you to aim for. I would go for increased minion damage. With the body armour slot, we use Immortal Regalia. The nice implicit on this for us is the up to 13% to minion all resistances. It actually has the same modifier as the helmet, so this is the critical strike chance for skeletons and mages. The difference being on this item, it actually goes up to a huge 15%. We then have increased minion fire damage, flat health, and then we have armour and reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. You can go for that or critical strike avoidance. Personally, with the new base item we have for boots, I prefer to go for the reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. For the main hand, we use the awesome Reach of the Grave. I feel like I've shown this off in so many videos, but it really is great, especially given it's a level 5 item. So this one here, your minion spells and bow attacks deal additional damage, that's up to 120%. You also leech a portion of the damage you do, and then you have that increased minion bow and cast speed. The legendary effects that I would add on to this would be your minion spell damage and your minion bow damage, which is perfect for this setup. The catalyst would be the Fleshbound Tomb. This gives us intelligence, increased minion damage, increased minion health. In regards to our modifiers, we have increased minion damage and minion health, we have poison resistance, and we have lightning resistance. For the belt slot, we have the Praetorian Belt. This has given us a decent amount of armour. Modifiers are increased minion damage and health once again, flat health, and then hybrid health as your exalted effects. This gives us at tier 7 up to 135 flat health and 10% increased health. This particular hybrid health effects will also show up on your boots and gloves, and you want to get it there as well whenever you can when you are, of course, running a health based build. Our first ring here is a unique item. This is Ribbons of Blood. We don't use a lot of effects on this, but the one that really helps out with our minions, and you will notice a difference if you're not using this, is the bottom effects where your minions cannot be crit. That really makes a massive difference for the survivability. For your modifier, in this instance I would go for increased health. If you feel you don't need it, go for increased minion damage instead. For the second ring here, we have the turquoise ring. The implicits are perfect for us. It's minion damage, minion health, and minion critical strike multiplier. Modifiers, once again, we've got minion damage and minion health. We then have endurance. We want to hit that cap of 60% on this, and then we have fire resistance as well. For the boots here, we have this awesome new base item. This is the Citadel boots. The implicit here that we really like is that reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Modifier wise, we have vitality, increased movement speed, hybrid health, that would be our tier 7 effects, and also flat health. For the glove slot, we have another new base item. This is Arcane Bracers. So these will give us mana and increased mana regen. That actually helps out because when we summon volatile zombies, they are pretty mana intensive, so this allows us to cast them more often. Once again, I feel like a broken record here, but we have for the modifiers increased minion health and damage, we've got hybrid health, and then we've got flat health. The final slot we have here before having a look at the idols is the Relic. Implicits on this are minion damage, minion movement speed, and minion health. For the modifiers, this is where you can get additional levels to summon Skeletal Mage, which can really help up their damage. We've also got increased minion health, endurance, that takes us to the 60% cap, and then flat health as well. Starting off the idol slots here, we have Grand Bone Idol. We have two of these and they would be identical. These would give us plus 2% critical strike chance for our skeletons and mages, as well as physical resistance. You can see the two of them there. We then have Large Immortal Idol. It's increased health and a chance for Marked for Death on minion hit. Because we have so many minions, 7% should be enough to apply this. When you apply it, the enemy you're attacking, the resistances are reduced by 25%. We have another 3 of these, but they're slightly different. So it's Large Immortal Idol, increased health once again, but this time minion increased cooldown recovery speed. And you can see, as we mentioned, we've got 3 of these, so that's taking you close to 75% for that particular stat. And then for these last 2 ones here, you can fill in whatever resistance you need. In this instance, for this setup, it would be a lightning resistance that I would go for. For the blessings, we start off with the Black Sun and we go for Void Resistance. We then have End in the Storm and we go for additional mana to help us cast more volatile zombies. We have Reign of the Dragons, and this gives us up to 25% to minion all resistances. That was buffed with 1.0, so it's really nice now. We then have the Age of Winter and we would go for Cold Resistance. And then finishing up the blessings here, we have Spirits of Fire, and that's increased minion damage. Now next up, let's have a look at the passive skill tree. For the passive tree here, we have the full skill planner and Last Epoch tools, but we'll quickly run over the nodes. So we get 8 points into Forbidden Knowledge, that gives us intelligence and necrotic resistance. We have 8 points into Stolen Vitality, so it's giving us vitality and increased minion health. 5 points into Dark Rituals, that's increased minion attack and cast speed. And then 1 point into Soul Aegis, that gives us minion armour per level. So at level 100, that gives us 300 armour for our minions for 1 point. We quickly dip into the Warlock tree here. We would put 8 points into Chaos Flames. This gives us increased fire damage, ignite chance with fire skills, and you'll notice down the bottom there it says that this applies to minions. For the Necromancer tree, we start off with Risen Army, so it's the full 8 points. That's minion damage, minion attack speed, and minion cast speed. We have 3 points into Cursed Blood because this then allows us 8 points into Aegis Fall. That's minion armor shred chance 200%. With 16 or so minions, we can get a real nice amount of stacks on this. We have 1 point into Blood Armor, 10 into Mortal Tether, that gives us 150% increased minion damage, and also we can get an extra skeleton from this node here. We have 3 points into Dark Retribution, so when one of our minions dies, that will include the volatile zombie, we have a chance to summon a skeletal vanguard, so we'll have a pretty high uptime and having 3 of them available. We have Effigies next. With this, there is a chance to consume a minion. It's a 1 in 4 chance when your health is below 35%, which isn't great. However, it increases your minion fire damage by 50% and bow damage by 50%. So I would say the trade-off is worthwhile there. We have 3 points going into Tyrant. This allows us to get another skeleton from this node here. And then we have 5 points going into Cling to Life. That gives us vitality and minion all resistances. 10 points into Moonlight Pyre, that gives us a flat base minion fire damage, 10 of that it gives us. 3 points into Rite of Undead. The reason we're really going for that is so we can get 1 point into Disciples of Necromancy, and that gives us an additional skeleton mage that allows us to have up to 5 of them. And then for our last points here, we have Frantic Summons, that's increased attack speed and cast speed. We have River of Bones, which is increased critical strike chance for our minions, as well as minion critical strike damage leached as health, great for survivability. 10 points into Heresy, so that's 10 intelligence and more critical strike chance. And then we have Blades of the Forlorn. It's minion critical strike multiplier as well as the minion chill chance. Now the chance is only 7%, but again, because we have so many minions, we can apply a few stacks of chill with this, and it slows the enemies way down. It not only slows them from moving, but it slows them from attacking as well. With this planner here, once again, we have all the skills locked in, so when you go to the link in the description below, you can see the actual point allocation, but we'll quickly run through the nodes here. The first skill, of course, is Summon Skeleton. We have 5 points into Unholy Rage, it gives us increased attack speed. 1 point into Lone Guardian, and then we have 1 point into Mightier Than the Sword. This means we can only have archers. When we summon, we get an additional skeleton from this node here. This one here means our skeletons will use Fire Arrow, and then Multi-Shot means they'll fire multiple fire arrows. We have 5 points into Necrotic Conviction. It gives our archers an additional 75% more damage. We have 1 point into Hollow Walkers. That gives us an additional skeleton. And then we've got 2 points into this node here. The base crit chance is nice, but we're placing them into it really so we can get Grave Walkers, which is another skeleton at all. And that gets us up to 9 skeletons we can have maximum. And then for our last point, we put it into Marrow Tap for a little bit of survivability. The next skill we have is Summon Bone Golem. We will convert this to Pyre Golem, and this will be our tanking minion. So 2 points into this node allows us to go along to Charred Bones. We put the full 5 points into that for melee and spell fire damage. 1 point into Pyre Golem, we convert it to a Fire Golem, and that gives us additional points via the amulet that we looked at earlier on in the video. 4 points into Unnatural Speed, so it can move quicker to tank enemies for us. 5 points into Amalgam of Sentinels, that gives it additional health and armour, as well as a percentage multiplier of that as well. 4 points into Tower of Bones, increases the size, which doesn't do anything other than make it look better, but it increases the threat generation by 60%, so it becomes a better tank. And then 1 point into Fragments of the Fallen. So with this one, it will do additional damage. It's bigger, once again, doesn't change anything other than it looking really nice, and it gets additional starting armour. Our Summon Skeletal Mages, then we will convert these into a fire version once again. We have Cella Mortis. This gives us up to 15% base crit chance and speed for our mages. 1 point here gives us an additional mage, meaning we'll have up to 5 in total. 3 points into Grey Merchant, it gives us critical multiplier and also maximum health gained on crit, 15% on crit, which is a real decent amount. 1 point into Pyromancers, that gives us the flame style, which works really good with this build. And then 1 point into Inferno, so that all your mages are guaranteed to be Pyromancers. From there, 4 points into Splintered Dominion, that makes our extra projectile chance 100%, so we're doing that all the time there really. Argonautic Speed is giving us additional attack speed. Ocean Frenzy, this one here, we're really placing the points into it so we can move along the tree to here, the Grave Passage. So what this does is it changes this skill so that it will summon a Skeletal Mage, but we can use it as a teleport skill as well, and that allows us to have basically a full bar of minion skills due to this. So this here will be our main spender. We use this whenever we have mana. Summon Volatile Zombie. The setup we're using here, 2 points into Forceful Commander, 1 point into Daunting Blast, and then allows us 2 points into Ravenous. So when they explode, they do 60% more damage to bosses and rare enemies. And then Pool of the Grave, it gives us 16% kill threshold, which is amazing. We have 3 points into Grave Attunement. It's additional damage. They will move slower. However, because we place 5 points into Fervor, you can see it gives them additional move speed and more damage as well, so that offsets the fact they are going slower with that node from a second ago. We have 1 spare point we put into Path of Destruction, 4 points going into Army of Rot, increases our poison chance, but that is actually converted to ignite chance, and it allows us to convert the damage on the zombies to fire as well. And then we have 1 point into Repulse Vomit, just so they vomit on enemies. It looks pretty nice if nothing else. The final skill we have here is Dreadshade, so we'll cast this on one of our mages or archers. Yes, it means they'll take more damage, but because we've got our golem tanking and because we have so many minions, they act as a meat shield for the one that the Dreadshade should be on, so we don't really see the downsides of this, we only really get the upsides. But point allocation, Spectral Presence increases the range of the buff by 100%. 1 point in Lone Watcher means rather than the health running down in the minion means it's guaranteed to eventually die, instead it will take more damage, and once again we've got options to really offset that. We have 3 points into Dying Coven, so that is increased attack speed and cast speed. Grim Fate gives us increased area on Dreadshade and 60% more damage. 3 points into Lingering Doom, so that decreases the health decay, which means it actually decreases the damage the affected minion would take, and it gives us a flat necrotic damage. 3 points into Flesh Harvest, so as the health goes down on that minion, our other buffs will be more effective. 1 point into Wisdom of the Dead, and then 1 point into Martyrdom, so for every point in Vitality it gives our minions an additional 25 armour. So that's everything you need to know for the endgame guide for the Fire Necromancer in Last Epoch. It's a real fun build, and it's actually one that I've been playing on and off since Kickstarter. I find I always go back to it. There's just something about having all those minions on screen firing fire damage all over that's just so much fun. Now, there are other endgame guide videos on the channel, so if this one has been helpful, if you found it useful, then feel free to check out the other ones as well. But let me know what you think of this setup in the comments below, and thanks for tuning in, stay safe, and I'll see you all again soon.